The Grappling Hour is brought to you by BioPro Plus, the faster, easier, and safer non-synthetic alternative to painful anti-aging and hormone treatments.
I'm a slice of New York type of guy. Like a New York style pizza is my thing, and I think the Chicago was great, but the New York style was just it does the job.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we could get you to a point where the Chicago audience will have more reason to boo you the next time they see you.
Even more.
What's up, everybody? It is your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Rafa Esparza, coming to you with another great installment of Grappling Hour. How are you doing today? I hope well. We have an excellent guest, but before we get to him, a couple quick reminders. Number one, if you haven't liked, subscribed, comment, shared, all of that sort of stuff, we love it if you could actually take the time to do that right now. I'll wait. But seriously, why do I need you to do that? Well, not only does it tell people about the great episodes that we do here on the show, but it really does help to support us, our athletes that we interview, etc., etc. Now that's nice, but what you can also do is you can also become a member of the Grappling Hour family. How do you do that? Well, first, you can go become a member at HY.PAGE/Grappling Hour to get early access to interviews just like this, or to get premium episodes of extra content that include episodes that aren't available anywhere else. You can do those things, and you can also join our Discord, which right now I've just finished before we started this interview, roasting several of our members. You can find a link to that down here. We're going to be talking about technique training, all that sort of stuff, end of the year goals, etc., etc. So don't go anywhere. I want you guys to stick around for the interview, but I definitely want you to go do those things. So check us out, like and subscribe, become a member, and join our Discord. All right. What do I say about our guest? Well, I know his brother well. He's very good at Jiu-Jitsu, I guess. A winner. Combat Jiu-Jitsu winner. Whatever. No big. Still ducks training me. It's fine. I don't have feelings about it. I'm just saying factual information. However, this young man just had an impressive win over at Bellator MMA. Now, there's a few things to talk about from this particular win. You can pick any of them, such as skill. What happened after the fight? But the moment I knew I was interviewing him was when I saw the moment that he did a photo shoot. Now, when you do a photo shoot, sometimes for these things, you get the fisticuff pose, and that's fine. That's normal. Bellator is a little nice. Their photographers tend to be very, very at ease and helpful to their athletes. So sometimes they style it around their personality. In this particular photo shoot, our guest today decided to bring his dog. And it made me see a side of him that I said, wait, this dude is selling you an adorable photo, and the next day is going to go out there and be a killer. And guess what? You can be both, people. So that's why we're going to talk with Laird Anderson right now to find out. Laird, let me ask you, why are you bringing your dog into the most adorable photo shoot I have ever seen for a fighter?
Well, first, that I've had Boji, that's his name, Boji, by the way, named after an anime character.
Nerd. Okay, but go on.
I've had him for about 4 months, and he's just like, he goes with me everywhere. I take him everywhere. And I knew as soon as I had this fight that he was going to come with me. And honestly, if I could have him corner me, I would.
I don't know that he would get past any of the commissions, but, you know, it's worth looking into. I hear their regulations can be a bit rough. But hey, listen, I'm not here to do shitty jokes like that. I'm here to ask you, how did that come together? And did you pitch it to them, Or did they see your dog and go, oh, you guys, you got to do one of these together? Because your dog,
Yeah.
and I don't know if people understand what he looks like, we'll show a photo overlaid on this, but it looks like you had picked up the Monopoly dog and put him on your back. And then when that happens, I actually put, and I shared it on our stories, I literally put it as words, stop. Because I wasn't expecting this. I knew you were fighting, but I also go, listen, bro, I'm not prepared to roast you in a way that I think would be befitting to all people who own dogs. But who was responsible for this?
Well, I had him walking around the hotel with me the whole time. And the first day we got into Chicago was the day we had the photo shoot. So got off the plane, got into the hotel, walked straight down for the photo shoot. And just, I had my corners, right? My corners, Tina and my brother Elias. And Boji was there with me. So he's watched all my training. I mean, he sits there, he watches me strike, he watches me grapple, he watches me wrestle. So to me, he's part of the team. And the photographer, Lucas Noonan, one of the best photographers in the game, by the way, he said that I should get a team photo. And of course, part of the team is Boji. And after we pulled Boji in for the photo, he just wanted to get a couple of shots of just me and him. And they just turned out better than I could have imagined.
Okay,
just
but
perfect.
You know, it's kind of weird. I didn't see photos of you and your team. I saw photos of you and your dog, which meant he superseded your team, which I thought was already a pretty high mark.
Oh, he goes with me everywhere. He's my best friend. So yeah, they don't get that kind of special treatment.
Okay. And listen, dude, I understand that there are levels. My wife often will say that sometimes I rank our two dogs as to who I love more. And I say that's not true. I love both of my children equally, except for the one that loves me most. So it's a very different scale, and I understand that. But the reason why I bring this up, and this is the hardest thing to try and figure out the difference between the two, is we go from you straight out doing prom photos with a dog to the next day being a killer who then is essentially telling his opponent to suck it or is doing some sort of weird gesture at the end of it. And I go, I can't put these two people together, but yes, they are one and the same. So we'll get to the post-fight aspects of it. But was there something leading into this that made it bad blood, or did that actually come throughout the fight?
No, it came through the fight. And naturally, like when you're even when you're grappling another man, but especially when you're fighting and you're trying to physically hurt someone, there's just a lot of emotions involved, you know? And there was friendly banter in the beginning, and I think I let it get to me a little too much, because the funny thing is I actually started the banter, but then I guess I just wasn't ready for him to come back at me with it. So at the end, when I had finished the fight and the ref had pulled me off of him, there was still a few words being said, and I was confused as to why there would have to be any more words said because of the result, you know? So that's when I did the gesture, which was more of, like you said, a suck it gesture than anything else. But that's not what people online are thinking, which is pretty funny. So I've been eating it up.
It is confusing, we'll say that. But
yeah,
I know why you're confused. So allow me to speak, perhaps for your opponent. And if you're somebody who is watching this who knows his opponent, just shut up. I'm interviewing one person, not both of them. This is not couples counseling. I'm just talking about the fight game. And from my perspective, as somebody who's not very good at jiu-jitsu, but is excellent at trash talk, I can tell you that I may not win every round, but you will never beat me in roasting. So I've definitely had people who have submitted me, and I've been like, that's all you got? That's it? Dude, I thought you were a black belt. It took you 20 minutes to tap me once. Like, It's not new for me, so I know where that comes from. You said, though, that he was giving it back to you. Now, this is where I get confused. How, if you watch that fight, and we'll talk a little bit about it, is he giving it back to you? Because I did hear you initiate, and did you say something to the effect of you're getting beat up to him, and then something happened after? Was that the initiation of that kind of trash talk back and forth?
Well, okay, so it started. See, I didn't even find it much like trash talk because most of what I was saying felt true to me, you know? The first thing that I said was I was on top of him in the first round, and I think it was like halfway through. I kept covering his mouth, and I could see his eyes. I saw his face getting red, and I just looked at him and I said, "You're tired. You're definitely tired." And like at that moment, that's when he started biting back, and he was telling me that I didn't hit strong. You know, he was telling me that I hit like a. And so I was like, okay, that's that. It got in my head actually. That was the first thing I thought was like, maybe I don't hit hard. Maybe I don't. I'm like, maybe I'm not hitting him hard. And now I'm getting nervous. I'm like, I'm not hitting him hard. He's not feeling it. So now I got to give him something back. And that's when I said, I laughed, I chuckled, and then I was like, "You're getting beat up," basically. You know.
Okay, because that's where I think the cameras first picked up with the audio what was going on.
Yeah.
Because up until there, I didn't know what was going on. I just heard you saying you're getting beat up, and I realized I have been both you and him in different role situations. So I have definitely been the person who's roasted these poor white belts and been like, "You're getting beat up," and I've also been the person that's been like, "You don't grapple well," while getting submitted 15 times in a row. So I do understand that. I was just confused when you're like, "Oh, he was giving it right back to me." And I go, "What's his material? Because I got to steal some of this stuff if it's that good."
Yeah, I think what he was doing was more just trying to frustrate me. Just get in my head a little bit, just get the slightest bit of an advantage. But it didn't work. And if you actually look back, well, I guess it worked in some sort of way, but if you look back into the right before I tell him he's getting beat up, if you listen closely, you'll hear what he said. But I cover his mouth as he's saying it, so it's kind of muffled. That's the thing. But I didn't take into like consideration that on video you only really hear what I said and then see what I do, and I kind of just look like an asshole, you know. But
well, I definitely saw one person on the internet. And again, I don't take much stock into internet comments all the time, but they are funny when I juxtapose them together. And there was one, the top comment basically said, not very impressed with Anderson. He was the one who initiated, or just something to that effect. And I was like, if you didn't like what he was saying or doing, that's one thing. But I think we can be impressed by what he did. Like, I don't think that's the first thing that jumped to my head. I was like, in fact, quite impressed with his technique. We'll talk about how he can improve his trash talk. But you know what? Excellent move by covering the mouth, because most people just do that in fighting without being prompted with someone talking back.
Yeah.
You actually had a purpose where you're like, no, shh, like that. And I realize now that you bring that together, I'm like, that's actually a pretty smart move there, kid.
Yeah, that's what I was doing, just trying to not let him get hurt.
So
it wasn't in any intention of making him tired at all.
No, because again, you kind of feel if most people fight, they can eat that for a little bit. But let me ask this. What was that fight week prep like? Because there's a little bit of travel. You mentioned going over to Chicago. I know everybody scales it down for the weight cut, all that sort of stuff. You definitely look like you did that very well. But what does week of look like for you, sir?
Yeah, so this fight week was a little bit different than my other ones. I first of all, it was my first time flying into a different place for that to fight, and I actually didn't even know until I was in the cage that Rob, my opponent, was from Illinois. Anyway, I was flying in to his hometown. Didn't know that, but it was nice to know eventually. The fight week was weird because I started the Friday before I flew out. I started feeling sick, just in my chest. It was hard to breathe. I was coughing. I was sneezing. Super congested, and I was just like, oh my gosh, of course this has to happen a week before I fight, right? So it was 7 days out. Fly into Chicago. I'm still feeling it, probably even worse than I did the first night. And right away we got a shakeout. Me, my brother, and my girlfriend Tina went into the workout room. We got a shakeout, and really, I was, despite being sick, I was just so dialed in the whole camp, and I had done so many good sparring rounds. And my girlfriend, like I mentioned, Tina, she kind of handled my nutrition throughout the camp, and handled that fight week weight cut, basically. Her, along with my manager, Kyle Driscoll, they both kind of helped me out throughout the whole fight week. Just my meals, what I should be eating, what I should be drinking, how much liquids I should be putting in. So despite being sick leading up to the fight, the week of preparation was spot on, was perfect. My weight cut was better than my previous fight. The training went well, and I just felt sharp. I felt like there was nothing that could get in my way.
Well, it definitely looked that way. And what I did appreciate is that you could see in the fight, you did what I'd like to imagine my takedowns are supposed to look like. Because you just looked like it was with relative ease. It's what it's supposed to be in your head. And the actuality of being able to do that is a testament to your skill, but you had excellent timing and reads to the point where, because of those things, you were able to implement a very heavy pressure-filled game, which, congrats, awesome. Like to see that.
Thank you.
But there was something about your ability to replicate that crucifix position. It said to me that when you pass with a certain kind of purpose and patience to the point where you avail that crucifix. Was that part of the game plan? Because if it wasn't, it sure looked like it.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. It wasn't at all. Actually, the whole camp, every sparring session, I've had pretty drastic changes between each and every camp, each and every professional camp. But this camp, I was extremely focused on wrestling. And so every sparring session, I was focused on my wrestling, focusing on trying to get the takedown, trying to get on top. And so it just came out in the fight. It was natural to go there, right? I actually looked back at the fight. When I was in the fight, I kept thinking to myself, oh, it's been too long since I've shot. Like the first round, I remember I was thinking, I haven't shot. I should shoot. It's been way too long. But when I look back at the fight, I realized it actually happened super quick. But it didn't feel that way. The crucifix, on the other hand, was just something I felt. I think it was the first round. It was fairly easy to manipulate that arm on the side that I would put my knee over. And I was just like, I remember watching this one female fighter in the UFC who just beat Molly McCann. I'm blanking on her name, but she put Molly McCann in what's that?
Erin Blanchfield?
Yes.
Yeah, she's a very stellar former, I believe, EBI competitor. I'm trying to remember if she won. That's right. I know I've interviewed her before, but she's dope.
Yeah. Oh, she's a killer for sure. I loved watching her. But I just thought of that as soon as I was in the fight, and I could feel that. I was like, I could totally get this right now. Never hit it in sparring once. Never even hit it in my grappling matches. When I would live grapple, I would never get there. But I just felt it, and I just decided to go for it. It worked out perfectly. Because in the first round is when I got the first one. And then once I came back to my corner, going back in the second round, I was like, I could definitely get back into that position.
Let's be clear, that first round was you drilling it. The second round was you pulling it off. Like, it was you. Exactly. If you didn't get in the reps, that was you going like, let me try this out real quick. Most people do that before the fight, but I like the real time application of it that you were able to do. The reason why it looked like it was such a compliment to what you would look like that you do, not only did it come through effortlessly, but there was purpose in your weight. So in the same way that you had a great leg staple and you were kind of like waiting for your time to go through that half guard, it looked like once you did start to pass, you were like, well, okay, let's have him eat this shin on his arm. And guess what? In round 2, in my own personal opinion, it looked like he was a little winded to the point where even his strikes and his hands, they were mentioning on the commentary, were starting to drop. I think it's no, it's no surprise to see somebody being like, yeah, dude, his entire body was on this arm. So it's going to be kind of hard to keep it up that entire time. And even more likely that if he wants to take that position, it can happen again, possibly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it was a good little drilling session in the first round, but I think we were right next to the cage when I initially put it in. I tried to put my shin over the arm, and then he used his feet on the cage to kind of bump his way out of it. And then as soon as I stepped over or I passed the guard in the second round, I knew right away I was going back to it. And I felt that he was tired from just carrying my weight. And a big thing that I knew would make him tired that he was doing that a lot of people that I sparred with didn't do was, instead of trying to create space and get up, he was just trying to hold. He was pulling me into him for most of the fight. I would try to posture up and I would try to get my strikes going and my ground and pound, but I felt him pulling me into him. Like he was trying to hold me there instead of use that space to escape. So I think that made him tired and had an effect in it.
That makes sense. I would also point this out because one of the things that I did appreciate in between the rounds was that your corner was telling you, hey, listen, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure they were saying, look for that underhook. Like if you can get that underhook in terms of a pass. And in the second round, I was like, I thought about it as I was watching it live. I go, that's actually really good advice. Like, okay, yeah, if you end up getting in that takedown, which we feel like you can do, and especially if you believe in your wrestling, why not get that underhook? And then I immediately go, he doesn't even need it. I think, we're good.
Yeah.
We don't even need that right now. So what a good place to be in. But I'm pretty sure you have to feel great about your way to implement your wrestling. So obviously emotions are high. You end up getting the win. They pull you off. You mentioned that maybe you let it get to you a little bit too much, but what was going through your head? Because in that moment, you do have to feel great that you were able to get another win, especially in Bellator. So do you mind describing what it was like once they started saying, all right, you did win the fight and they pull you off?
Yeah, no, I felt it's always, it's a great feeling, but also like a relieving feeling to where like every session you did, everything your coach told you to do or your coaches, all the hard work, all the sweat, it all just came together and cultivated itself in perfect fashion, maybe not perfect, but very good fashion. So that was good. It was a great feeling as soon as the ref stopped. And I think I let that excitement get to me and just, it came out in trash talk, and then, afterwards I went back to the corner after I had done that gesture. He was still talking. And then that's when a lot of people thought I was screaming to his corner. Like they were like, what, did you not have enough fighting Rob? You wanted to fight his corner too? And then I was like, no, I was still talking to my opponent, Rob, he was with his corner at that point, but he was still chirping a little bit at me. So I was telling him what happened in the fight, basically. After that, I walked back to Elias and Tina, and I kind of started to settle. And then I saw my friends and family in the crowd, and it just kind of all started to come to me again, and I was more in a relaxed mood, and then I started to feel bad for my gesture at the end, but it's the fight game, and it's what I did, and I'm perfectly okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that if I felt it was a little too extreme, I don't think I would reach out for an interview. I think it was more so like, from my perspective, all right, these gentlemen had words. You can tell the ref tells you to kind of shake hands after they do the hand raise, and you look like two kids whose parents came over and they're like, "Hey, just shake hands," and you go, yeah, whatever. I don't like you, guy. So you see that and you kind of laugh and you go, all right, it should be done. It should be settled. In my perspective, though, I also know you and your brother are pretty chill people. So I was like, something didn't compute, and maybe there's a kind of story there. But in actuality, it sounds like what maybe the context we don't have when we're in that cage is that there was natural athletic talking between each other. Like both of you were basically posturing, not just physically, but verbally. And it looks like after it's all said and done, you kind of go, all right, I let it go. It is what it is. And it got finished there. So in that respect, I am very happy. I would like to ask though, how do you celebrate this win? Because after it's all said and done, do you stick around? Do you go get food? Because I don't know what kind of things that you do. And in knowing your brother, I also know you guys could probably be just perfectly fine doing something that would be not quite the norm. So what is the celebration like for you guys on this particular win?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was a different experience than any of my other fights because the locker rooms at the Winchester Arena in Chicago were pretty small. So basically what they were doing is as soon as we would end the fight, we would go see the doctor, we would grab all our stuff, or they would have our stuff, right? So we had to put our stuff in bags, and then they would take the stuff out. We weren't even supposed to go back to the locker room, right? So leave the cage, go into the go get checked by the doctor, grab our stuff, and then they push us back into the hotel right away. So it's like 5 minutes ago, I was fighting some guy in a cage in front of a big crowd, right? And then not even 5 minutes later, I'm sitting in my hotel room just talking to like a few other people about the fight, and it felt a little weird at first. I was like, almost like a dream, right? Like I didn't was I actually in there because we were able to watch the rest of the fights on TV, and they give you tickets to go watch back, but I had a bunch of friends and family that flew out to see me, so I just wanted to hang with them. The celebration, though, was deep dish pizza, of course. You know, I had so many people tell me about so many different places, and we were researching the whole week. And I might sound crazy for this, but I bet you a bunch of different athletes can relate. But when I'm cutting weight, I can't do anything but watch food videos. Just like nasty food, cheeseburgers, pizza, wings, all of that stuff. And so the first thing I could possibly think of after the fight was having some deep dish pizza and a Dr. Pepper.
Okay, let's break this down. You're speaking my language because I love when athletes talk about their cheat meals because to the rest of us, that's just called a meal. So when you're describing like, man, I had this thing called a deep dish pizza, and I was like, right, you had pizza. Congratulations. That's good.
Yeah.
I had that probably before this interview. Now, what I have to ask is, are you a pizza snob? Are you a person where you say like, oh, this tastes like great pizza because you did the weight cut and because you're fighting? Or are you a person that is objectively ranking this pizza in a way that you go, you know what? Chicago, I don't see it. I don't see what the appeal is.
I'm not a pizza snob, but I always kind of base my pizza around this one place that we have in San Jose. It's called Slice of New York, and their pizza is just phenomenal. My favorite place to go. So every time I get pizza, that's the line of judgment. is how good it is compared to that place. So I'm a slice of New York type of guy. Like a New York style pizza is my thing, and I think the Chicago was great, but the New York style was just it does the job.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we could get you to a point where the Chicago audience will have more reason to boo you the next time they see you.
Do you wish that you could recover faster from workouts or training? Do you wish you had the same energy, power, stamina, and drive that you used to? Every year after puberty, your growth hormone decreases, sometimes by as much as 50%. And, spoiler, it doesn't come back. It doesn't matter how in shape you are or how good your diet is. Just like death, taxes, and sequels to The Fast and the Furious, they're gonna happen, whether you like it or not. But Raph, how does this affect me, a young jiu-jitsu practitioner who believes he will never get old? Well, growth hormone decreases can cause poor workout performance, slow workout and injury recovery, chronic fatigue, mood swings, depression, body fat, low libido, poor sleep, and a lot more. Though frankly, if you're asking me, that sounds like plenty. That's where BioPro Plus comes in. BioPro Plus is the first of its kind 100% non-synthetic alternative to prescription HGH growth hormone treatments. It immediately replaces what your body is not getting. And it does it naturally, without the needles, nasty side effects, or the expensive costs of typical synthetic growth hormone treatments. BioPro Plus is not a synthetic drug, so it won't shut off your natural production or cause you to pop on any drug tests. Wink, ADCC competitors. Since 2009, BioPro Plus was only available through doctors, but not anymore. Now you can get BioPro Plus shipped directly to you. No doctor visits, no blood work, no pharmacy. If you're serious about your training, and I hope that you are, go to BioProtein Tech and use the promo code GRAPPLINGHOUR for We're giving them $30 off to our idiots? Okay, it's their money. Go to Bioprotein Tech and use the code GRAPPLINGHOUR for $30 off. So go check out BioPro Plus today before your competition does.
Yeah, I already got booed going out of the ring. Now the next time I'm there, they're gonna hate me for dissing on their pizza.
Kid, just own the fact that you're a heel in Chicago. You're a face in the Bay. You're gonna be a heel in Chicago. And you know what? You might get some cheers over in New York City because you're putting over their pizza. And
that's true.
The funny part to me is you kind of get a sense of the athlete when they say like, oh, I love pizza. And I go, cool, tell me where you get pizza. And here's the sad part. As much as you like pizza and as much as I do appreciate you, I have a rule, which is never trust skinny people with their food recommendations because they don't have a greater sense of ability for reference. So even though you're like, man, this is the place, I go, it's okay. I'll take it with a grain of salt here. Having said all of that, you're not alone. Almost every athlete I talk to has that same series of saved videos of Pinterest pins of all these things where they go, dude, all I do is do this. And they try to figure out why. And I tell them, I go, well, you fight in a cage for a living. So it's very hard to take your brain to a place where something like that is going to affect it and like throw it off course when there's such a focus.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Couldn't stop thinking about it. Couldn't stop. I don't know. It's definitely a weird thing. And it makes you feel weird. I'm like, while I'm watching the videos, I'm actually questioning myself. Like, why am I doing this? I have no reason to be doing this. But it just feels good. It feels like a distraction.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's kind of, your way of getting a very good drama. Some people escape with Netflix. You watch videos, and it's your form of a horror film where you're like, oh, no, what would happen if I ate that? So
what would happen?
You think of that.
What if I didn't make it?
Exactly, and that's the bigger one. I think if I ever make a movie based on any kind of MMA aspect, you won't really make people fearful with blood, but you can make a great psychological thriller about someone thinking they're about to miss weight and a killer that would do just that sort of a thing. You know, this is your first time on the show, so we always like to get a little bit of the origin story. So for you and your family, it's kind of embedded. It was kind of already an absolute thing that was going to happen for you guys. But when do you first remember martial arts like as a concept that was going to be something that involved you? Because you were probably involved in it before you really had a comprehension of it. But when does it
Yeah.
really like happen for you in your first series of memories that you can go back to?
Yeah, I think like I mean, obviously, yeah, I was put into it at such a young age, but I don't think it really started to become something I enjoyed and wanted to do very frequently until I was a young teenager. Once I once I was introduced to more martial art, I mean, I was always introduced to martial arts through my dad. We would do boxing, we would do wrestling, we would do jiu-jitsu, but it was for the most part predominantly jiu-jitsu. So I started to find my own passion for the individual sports. And that's when I remember kind of falling in love with it and just being obsessed with this crazy thing. This fighting someone in the cage is it's a weird thing, but it's something that people can obsess over, and it's something that I definitely obsessed over. So probably like young teenage years is when it all started to fall into place, and when I really realized like this is what I want to do. This is absolutely what I want to do and what I want to invest my time into. Which caused a lot of confusion, but also it helped. It helped.
Let me go back even further real quick because I always like
Yeah.
returning back to the where did you fall in love with jiu-jitsu or martial arts. But for
Yeah.
you, do you remember like what is your first class that you remember or first experience that sticks out in your brain?
Oh man, I remember. I mean, my dad owned a studio, and it's well, it was below Carson City, Nevada. It's called Gardnerville, and I'm sure not many people even know that place exists. But yeah, he owned a studio in Gardnerville, Nevada, and um, I think the earliest memory I have isn't even doing jiu-jitsu. It's just with my gi on and my belt doing wheelbarrow races with the other kids. I don't even. I think the most I did was a hip bump, an elbow escape, and then swinging arm bars. Actually, a funny memory that I always tell people, especially when I'm teaching classes, because I'm talking to them and I'm like, you need to have the repetition. You need to do it over and over and over. You need to drill it over and over, and then when you go into your live practice, you need to try it there, right? So I remember because my dad obviously wanted Elias and I to be as good as we possibly could be, and we were in my dad's room just on the carpet, and we started getting into like the mechanics of an armbar, just a swinging armbar. And Elias and I were doing it, and he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna grade you guys. You're each gonna show me your arm bars, and I'm gonna grade it." And I remember doing it, and he was like, "Okay, D, you get a D." And I was like, "A D? What? I've done so many arm bars at this point." And he's like, "You get a D." And then Elias does it, and I think he gave him a similar grade. And then he's like, "All right, you're both gonna just do this for an hour. You're both just gonna do swinging arm bars for an hour." And I remember me and my brother Elias sat there for an hour each doing swinging arm bars. And so every time people they get distracted in class or they start doing other moves, I'm like, I I'll sit for an hour and do swinging arm bars. I've done it. So that's one story that I'll always remember, and I even take it into my practice today. So
That makes sense. And thank you
appreciate
for
it.
sharing that. But it also kind of puts the context in because we do a segment on the show every year for WrestleMania called WWE BJJ Week. And it's a combination of pro wrestling and jiu-jitsu. And
Yeah,
I had tasked your brother because I heard a rumor that he had some skill at it. And,
yeah,
I'd asked him to put together a video and I see this backflip kind of thing that he does. And I go, why is this movement so good? Like for
yeah,
somebody who is not a pro wrestler, he at least
yeah,
has the movement where you can kind of fake it pretty well, which is the whole point of these comedy videos that we do. And when
yeah.
he sent it to me, I go, "How dare you for being this good?" Like, how dare you forget? Like, just having this as something that you do in your back pocket. And I've laughed about it, but I've told him, I'm like, yo, just the stuff that I see you guys mess around with. Who do you have to credit for those amazing videos that you guys do? Because every time you guys put one out, whether it's the couples ones or you guys show a technique together, or it's almost like you're kind of going over that, I feel like we get a peek of the adult version of what you were doing as kids.
That's literally it. That's exactly what it is. Elias and I, when we were kids, and we can accredit it to action movies, superhero movies, all that sort of stuff, because we would watch stuff like that, and then we would just go crazy doing stuff in our room, jumping off bunk beds, trying backflips off trees. Like, I'm questioning where the adult supervision was at these times, because we were doing whatever we wanted to do. But yeah, we would try everything. Elias has always been a little more adept to that type of stuff. He would just get it right away. Backflips off trees, standing backflips. We also took this like aerial awareness class in this gymnasium once, so a lot of work on the trampolines and whatnot. So yeah, and then we get creative with it. We sit down and talk, and we're like, what can we do that would just blow people's minds? But yeah, man, we have so much fun with it. It started when we were kids, so it's continuing.
I always get really excited when I see you put up a new video, and sometimes I don't even expect the comedy elements, and they're quite good. Like the way that they're produced, the techniques, it all comes together. So you and your brother do an excellent job of demonstrating those, and it always looks deceptively easy, because I look at it and I go, oh, I'm gonna try that today. And I think there was one move I tried to like replicate that you guys were doing, and I literally did it once, and I go, no, that's their jiu-jitsu. That does not work for me, but it's dope, and I love that video, and I'll recommend it to others who move like them. That they should be doing that. So I definitely see the pros and cons of that. You know, I asked your brother to give me the dirt, and instead he gave me a profile, because I was like, yo, I don't need information that's good about you. Give me the shit I'm supposed to ask that nobody else would know. And instead he gave me a book report that was so glowing and was like, well, he is a standout wrestler, and he's got the look and he's got the right vibes, and everybody in the gym knows that, AKA this dude's got it and he's going places. And I was like, this is so boring. In no way will I ask him questions based off of this. However, I will ask, where did the association with AKA begin? Was that as you were transitioning into a fight career?
No, actually. So when I was 14 years old, my dad moved to the Bay Area, and Elias and I moved with him. And the first place we trained was like AKA's, one of their branches. So it was AKA Hillsdale, when there wasn't any of the pro fighters there training, and we were just doing jiu-jitsu there. Eventually, we started training just my dad. We bounced around to a couple other schools. We went to Knox, trained with Josh Thompson, and then our dad had opened up his own school, and then we were training there with a few of our own coaches and ourselves. But then pandemic happens. We move back to Nevada, hang out there for a little bit. I get an opportunity to start teaching at a local gym here in San Jose. And I was by myself. I came out here by myself without Elias at the time, which was a weird feeling. But I remember I was like, oh, I got to train. I got to find someone to train with. So I hit up this guy, Benji Silva, one of Kyle Terra's black belts, and I talked to him. I was like asking him if I could come into Kyle's and train in the comp class, just get work with them. So he invited me in. And at that point, I was only training there. I wasn't doing any MMA. I wasn't doing any striking. I was strictly going to their comp class every day, doing jiu-jitsu. and then I would teach at night and roll with some of the guys at the local gym, right? Eventually, this guy Kyle Driscoll, who's now my manager, walks into Kaio's, and Benji introduces us, and we start drilling, and we drill for like 30 minutes, just such a fast pace. I don't even think a word was said between the two of us, besides just meeting. And then we roll afterwards, and I get to talk to him, and I tell him, I'm like, yeah, I want to do MMA, but I don't know like how likely it is right now. I haven't really like thought of a place to train or been around the area as far as MMA goes, and I'm kind of just doing jiu-jitsu right now. And then he was like, well, I train at AK, like I'm fighting too, like I'm probably gonna have a fight here in a few months. Just come into the pro practice, and let's see what we can do. So I did. So I kind of accredit it to him, for bringing me in there and showing me the ropes and taking care of me, because he did. He took good care of me, and it's crazy to me everything that happened, and then me meeting him at Kaio's, because at that point I wasn't even sure when the next time I was gonna fight, and I meet Kyle. He brings me into AKA, and not even 4 months later, he has a fight for me. So it worked out perfectly.
Well, shout out Benji as well. Benji is a
Shout
friend
out
of the
Benji.
show, except Benji is also on my shit list because he did not produce a WWE BJJ video from us. We were promised a CTA video guest starring another prominent individual from that team.
Who's that?
Name names. I won't name names. But I would tell you it might rhyme with Station Cowler.
He said he would.
Yeah, I think what happened was Benji had a gimmick, and I think he had an idea and a concept, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I think we'll get Mason in on this." And I was like, "I'll believe it when I see it." Mason's got a good sense of humor, and he's a friend of ours. However, I don't know that this is his bag.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Dude, we're gonna go all out. We're gonna do this." And then I would like hit him up, and I was like, "Hey man, I gotta go to press on these videos.
Yeah.
Do you have it?" And he goes, "Give me 2 more days." And I go, "Okay, let me see. Pull it back. I'll give you a couple more days to try and put it together." And he goes, "Yeah, Mason got sick or he got injured, and then we gotta take a couple days off." And I go, "Dude, no part of this requires you to be super healthy. If you can always work around it." So again,
well,
the difference between Benji and your brother is your brother's at least produced 1. So your brother's only vaguely on my shit list.
Well, he's got to get another. Maybe
I'm just saying,
next one.
Every year, it's an annual thing. It's the week right before WrestleMania. So you guys have until March to start figuring out something. And here's the thing. We give away a championship belt. So a legitimate, brand new custom design championship belt. So there are stakes involved. It's just a matter of people being lazy. Benji.
Well, Elias has one, so I might as well come for my first title.
Oh, well, that's the thing. Elias never won. He has the potential to win.
But he does have a title. He's just not going to have this one.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, you know what it was? I think it was, I had told him, because I showed him the belt, and he goes, "Yo." And I was like, "You can potentially be in the running to win this. You have the athleticism." Yeah. And clearly the way that you guys nerd out on restaging scenes from Power Rangers, it would sound like, it shows you have the ability and the concepts for it. But anyway, that's a different story. We'll talk a little bit more about that. There's a couple more things that I do want to cram in here while we're on this subject. So obviously there's this long layoff. There's this 4-year between you having a fight and then another fight. And obviously you mentioned that in that time, things start to come together, things start working. But before any of that happens, I do want to know, why is the need to be an MMA fighter? Because sometimes when you take that much time off, that's enough time for somebody to be like, you know what? I had a little bit of it. I got to experience it. I don't really need
Yeah.
it. In your
Yeah.
case, it emerged, you liked it. There was a period where it didn't happen, and then you did it again, which then shows there's a want, there's a desire, and that maybe a
Yeah.
new purpose with it. So I guess the first question is, where did it emerge to the want of being a fighter? And then how did it recapture all those years later?
Yeah. I mean, it started in the beginning with my dad, you know. He traveled, he traveled to Japan looking to be a better fighter. And at that point, he actually just told me the story a couple days ago. But he traveled to Japan because he had just been in street fights his whole life. Grew up being in a couple street fights, and then decided I want to be good at fighting. So he traveled to Japan. He looked to do some karate there, some judo, and then he went back to Torrance, California, where he discovered the Gracies and started training with them, and thought that it was just the best thing on the planet. Eventually, he got a UFC fight, UFC 22. Didn't go his way, but I think that just sparked even more love for him. Um, and ever since I could remember, he's always talked about Elias and I being MMA fighters. It wasn't ever just about jiu-jitsu. He was always telling us like, "Oh, one day you guys are going to fight UFC. One day you guys are going to fight, and you guys are going to be as best as you possibly can, and we're going to get you there." It wasn't even. I feel like most kids grow up, talking about career paths, talking about their, parents will talk about, "Oh, you guys are going to go to college, do this, and that," but I don't ever remember hearing something like that. I always remember hearing like, "You guys are going to be the best fighters you possibly can be," and so in the back of my head, I always wanted that, and there was a point there for a second where I would tell people like, I'm just focused on jiu-jitsu right now. I don't really know when I'll go back to MMA. But when I met Kyle and he brought me into AK, it just sparked that drive, that passion for it again. And I found the place that I can do it. I found the place that I can be my best. And deep down inside me, I'm a fighter, I really believe that. So, yeah,
Well, it
that's
would
kind of the
be
story.
insulting to your wrestling and the way that you implement it not to continue down that path, because
Yeah.
you could do that in jiu-jitsu, but
Mm-hmm.
I argue if you can do both, why not? And especially if you're young
Yeah.
enough and you're still not even hitting your prime athletically, that
Mm-hmm.
you're building to that. And for being such a young vet already at this age, like you've been doing
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu for so long
Mm-hmm.
that it's a very attainable thing to continue going forward and forward with it. So, in
Yeah.
that respect, I would encourage you to go with it because, again, you do have a gift for it. And,
Yeah.
these 2 appearances in Bellator so far, really good to see. Like, really excellent work. And it does seem like you'll keep getting new and new challenges. And one thing that I have seen between you and your brother, and even hearing stories from mutual friends on the way that you guys train. Everybody that I know that I have talked to about the both of you has just said how great the sessions are,
Mm-hmm.
top quality guys that you are, and just there's a good vibe that they get where they're like, man, I
Yeah.
really want to go train with them again. So it's a
Oh, that's
testament
awesome.
to both of you, your brother, and your dad by extension. So it is
Yeah.
very cool to see that progression. So yeah, you are definitely fulfilling a lot of that dream for your father. I can tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he introduced us to the sport. He brought me, even to this day, you know, I give him the thanks to where I am, and I wouldn't, I wouldn't even have the passion for this. And for a while I didn't, I didn't, my dad would drag me out of bed and I'd be like, I don't want to go to jiu-jitsu. I don't want to train. I don't want to do this. And he's like, you're gonna do it. You're gonna do it. And I'm thankful for that because as much as I hated it at the time, it's something I can't stop thinking about now. So, yeah. training is like, it's the one thing I just love doing, so I think that's cool to hear from other people, and because when Elias and I are on the mats is when we're happiest, so I think it comes out, and I'm glad it does.
Very much so. And I hate to be a spoiler about a number of things. Things are getting better about this sort of situation now in this day and age, but you can only rock that mullet, that haircut in a number of professions. So you might as well stick with the one where it just blends in, because I didn't bat an eye when I saw the epicness that was your hair at that last fight. And this is a much more tame version. Like, this is you in Sunday best sort of version of this. So what is this inspired by? Because both you and your brother do a lot of different hairstyles, and I almost don't know what to expect from either of you at any given time.
Yeah, I think what it is like, we've always, because we're so close and we've always grown up, people think we're twins, and so we kind of always have to differentiate from each other in some way. So we're constantly changing our look with the hair a little bit, But the mullet, I have a friend that's a barber, and one of his friends had a mullet, and I had wrestled with him, I had trained with him, and I was like, I kind of like that, and I've never done it, so I might as well try. And so we started kind of shaping it back in April, back in my second Bellator fight. And for a while there, I was like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to do this. Your hair goes through the awkward stages, and I'm just like, I might just buzz it. I don't know if I want to continue. I'm not enjoying it. But I stuck it through, and we worked on it. And now it is the way it is. And I'm glad I kept it, because it looked damn good in the fight.
It's impressive, man. I mean, I can't pull off that hairstyle. My head is too obtuse. It doesn't do very large hair well. It kind of froze out. And I've tried. I know it does not work for me. It looks like a giant Spaceballs helmet. So I've kind of let that shit go. Again. You think I need to try again?
Yeah, dude. I would love to see it. When we meet, you better have a mullet.
Okay, so here's what's going to happen here, man. When we meet in person, I will 100% roll with you, because it is within my right to turn down rolls. I have no problem roasting you as we roll, and I guarantee you, as much as you'll be taking me down, that I'll still have my smart mouth on me. No matter how much you try to cover my mouth, I'm like Deadpool. I will find a way to still get the jokes out. Having said that, I will not have a mullet. It's just not going to happen. I also have a wife that has to look at me, and she is the only client that I care about. And even as is, when I go to my normal people to get haircuts, sometimes she won't even address if she likes it or not until like maybe 24 hours after. And then she'll be like, so do we want to talk about that haircut? And I go, it's up to you. So we got a guy at the gym. He cuts hair. He looked at me and he goes, bro, I want to cut your hair. And I go, I have a very bad thing to deliver to you. And he's like, what's that? I go, my head is a higher degree of difficulty than anybody's head that you cut. So I don't know that you're up to this level. I came home. She looked at it and she goes, yeah, he needs work. A buddy comes up to me. He sees me the next training session. He goes, what'd your wife say? And I was like, you don't want to know, guy. It's just better
you don't want to know. You're not going to feel good about yourself.
I was like, you know what? You could probably handle my wife roasting you about your jab, but I think it would be crushing if you as a profession get told that you're not good at cutting hair. So
we kind of have similar experience, but in the opposite sense, because I was ready to shave it and my girlfriend was telling me to keep it. She continued to say, like, no, just stick with it. Like, it's going to look good. Just stick with it and keep going. And I was like, fine, I'll do it.
You can pull it off. You look over here like Rick Rude's son. Like, it works for you. So you definitely go through it. And the thing that I laughed at so hard, especially when I know that we're doing this interview, when I rewatch the fight, is I go, oh, him being a heel works with this hair. Like, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure they think this dude's a dirtbag, but they don't know
Yeah.
that this dude literally took a photo with his dog. Like,
Yeah.
they won't
Yeah.
put these two people together.
No. They won't think we're the same.
Well,
I had friends texting me after. It was so funny. They were like, you know what? I think you should just lean in. Just be the heel from here on out. Just do it.
So here, I will counter that just because of this. If you're a heel, it has to be authentic. You're too good of a guy that I would see right through it, and I would be the one texting you and being like, you got to cut this bullshit.
You got to stop.
Like, take down the photo of you and the dog before I ever believe that you're the bad guy heel. Even when you were giving a measured response on your Chicago deep dish pizza, you're like, well, before I call it an unnecessary amount of dough, and I wouldn't say that, I just prefer more New York style pizza. I go, this kid doesn't have it in him. He doesn't have the stomach for it.
This kid is not the heel. He's not the heel.
He's got to definitely work on his heel work.
Yeah.
I do want to ask this because while I have you here, it would be good to know. So as a resident old person who has very little wrestling, how do you propose? Because your movement is so good. How do you tell people who are old how they can still get away with a decent wrestling game? Because my issue is this. I look at wrestling at my age now, and you're far too young to understand what this means. But I look at wrestling as like this ship that sailed, and I'm like, you know what? As long as I get a good counter and a guillotine, maybe I got a shot here. But from your perspective, you see a lot of different styles, and I know that your technique is good. So I'd love to get your perspective on that.
No, I mean, I think the big thing about wrestling that sometimes people get confused about, and I'm not like, I didn't start as a wrestler. I just fell in love with it, became obsessed with it, and now I consider myself, or some people might consider me, an adopted wrestler, right? So, but I feel like there's just 1, 2, maybe even 3 moves that you should focus on drilling on. And it doesn't have to be a wide variety. It doesn't have to be super, super next level hard. It should just be 1, 2, 3 moves, focusing on finishing sequences, and just continue drilling that. Or what I find with a lot of old guys is they're just super strong at countering, and they only focus on defense. You might not even take a shot once in your life, but if you could sprawl well, then you're in good hands.
Okay. Well, that's essentially my game. I've told people that my jiu-jitsu game is essentially the jiu-jitsu equivalent of a counter puncher. So I'm like, you do whatever you want. We both know I'm not shooting in for a double. That's not going to happen.
That's a hard style to deal with. It is. It really is.
Well, you'll find out at some point, and then you're going to come back and be like,
I don't know if
normally it's not a hard style, but Raph, it's a wrap. You could basically just blow him over and he'll be fine. Here's what I want to say. You definitely had a great team, and I know you've already given props to your dog, but I want to give you the opportunity to shout out anybody from your team that you felt helped to bring home this win. So I'm going to give you the camera. I'm going to put it on you. Go ahead and shout out those people that you want to give thanks to for helping you get this past win at this most recent Bellator, sir.
Yeah, I mean, there was so many, people that helped me in camp. As far as training partners go, definitely want to shout out my Oklahoma State boys, Kyle Crutchmer, Nick Piccinini, and Jacoby. All those guys helped me a lot with my wrestling, and they would watch some of my training sessions, watch some of my sparring sessions, and critique me on my wrestling, critique me on my defense, my offense. And so I'm super thankful for that. Kyle Driscoll, of course, is always watching me. He's always keeping a good eye on me. There for most of every one of my sparring sessions. But just the whole team at AK. They help me every day, and we just have some of the best fighters in the world, and I'm so appreciative to all of them, to be able to train with them. Last one is my girlfriend Tina and my brother Elias, they are consistently helping me day in and day out, and they gave everything to this camp. You know, they gave everything to it every single day. You know, so I'm extremely thankful for those two.
Well, I love to hear that. And what a great foundation that you've got. Great support, great people. I will ask this, because if you are leaning into that heel stage, because your brother is not training with me, and it's entirely likely I cannot beat him up, it would really help me if at some point, doesn't have to be now, doesn't have to be next week, maybe by the end of the year, let's say by the end of the year, that you either hit him with a DDT or an RKO, because I need some way to show him I am extracting revenge for him choosing not to train with me when he's in my hood, aka Southern California.
I'm going to. I'm gonna make sure. I'm gonna make sure he knows. I'm gonna tell him while I'm doing it why I'm doing it.
You know, that's a great hallmark for you to have, because we've seen it in a fight now, and I believe that you'll actually do it. Now that I've seen you in a fight, talk to your opponent.
Dude, and see that I don't talk trash. I'm just speaking the truth. I'm speaking what I'm feeling.
There's something great about the fact that you talked yourself straight into being like, I wasn't talking trash. I was just speaking factually about what was happening in the match.
The first thing I said was, "You're tired," and that's exactly what he was. You know.
I like that you jumped the gun before I normally put the invite to my guest to say like, hey, if you're ever in Southern California, come train, blah, blah, blah. Just like I did with your brother.
Yeah.
You literally are like, all right, Raph, when we meet, you better have a mullet. And I was like, we have not discussed that yet, kid. I hope I'm going to mitigate that expectation so we could get straight to the very, very respectable trash talk. But I want to say
I'll
this.
probably learn a thing or two from you.
That's the one thing I have to give. Roast jokes. I can write good jokes for you. I'm pretty sure they would work for you and your particular set of skills.
Perfect.
Laird, I want to thank you for taking time out right now. It was great to get to know you. Again, your brother was already so cool and so great to interview, and he was putting you over in that interview, and I knew that. And I've been watching what you've been up to. I always like seeing you guys work together. It's always great. But I was very, very happy to see you pull off this win, and it looked effortless, and it's a credit to your team, the people who are helping you, your family, all of that sort of stuff. But it looked really impressive, and it made me very excited for what's coming next. So big kudos to you, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you so much, dude. I appreciate you having me on. I had a blast.
Appreciate you too. I'll say bye to you off air, and we'll record the other thing in a second, but I'm going to close up this bitch right now. So hang tight. I'll see you in just a second, sir.
All right. Thank you.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Just as a quick reminder, if you can give us some love, like, share, comment, all of that good jazz, it means the world. And if you want to go over to HY.PAGE /grappling hour to become a member for early access or premium episodes, one of which we're going to record right now. We're going to find out what this young man's favorite match of 2023 or 2022 was. Sorry, my brain's already in 2023. And we hope that you join our Discord to continue the conversations that we have on this show. That's going to do it for us here at the Grappling Hour for right now. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a great day. We'll see you back on the mats.
Perfect.